Hello, and welcome to Business Reimagined with NBA section on business law. I am Onyinye Okebu, and our guest today is Mrs. Yinka Edu, partner Udo Udoma and Bella Osage. You're very welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's lovely to have you here. Okay, so in today's conversation, we would be discussing the future of business in the age of AI. And every time we think about AI, certain words come up. People think immediately about innovation, people think about risk. And some of the things that people think about is the ethics of the new world that we are all, well, not the new world because it's our current reality, to be fair, of the new reality that we are currently straddling. And so I wanted to speak to you a little bit about that in terms of what that looks like in your view for businesses, for legal practice, especially in Nigeria and Africa. So my first question to you would be, are we pro AI for business and legal practice? Yes or no, and why?
Okay, I'm not even going to answer with a yes or no. What I'll say is that, and first of all, I think it's a really great topic for the conference. I think that it affects us all, whether we like it or not. And so that's why I would answer yes or no, because frankly, it doesn't matter.
To be fair.
It doesn't matter. I think it affects us all. I really like it as a topic because I think that for in-house counsel, it's very relevant. I think for older firms, older traditional firms, it's very relevant. It's hopefully a way in which we can, even as Nigerian firms, can kind of catch up with some of our, in terms of operations, in terms of things like KYC and other types of things that have been very expensive and difficult for Nigerian law firms to do. Right. AI is great for that and sort of innovation. So I think that whether you're a one-partner firm, whether you're a young lawyer, I think it's relevant for everyone. So I think that AI is definitely good. It's definitely something to be embraced. But as you've hinted at, there's a lot of risk, there are issues, and we need to really go into it with our eyes open, I think. And this is a great forum where we can really talk about it and identify what the issues are and then know how to address them.
Absolutely. And I think I'm actually speaking to, the right group of people because, without the law, what is society? So we need the legal frameworks to help us, advance into this new reality, this current landscape that we are in a way that serves us, right? Because that's one of the concerns that we have. So bringing it to legal practice, what do you anticipate will be the expectations of clients? And I think about this particularly in terms of service delivery. So we've heard in the past some of the ways that clients have evaluated the output from law firms in terms of what should be the compensation for the effort that has been put in. Now we have AI in the mix. What do you expect those conversations to be like going forward?
I think it's interesting. I think that generally speaking, a lot of people believe that they can, even with Google, believe that they can draft legal documents by themselves. They can sort of anticipate things. I don't know the number. Maybe others are lucky, but I don't know the number of times I've heard people say, aren't you just going to adapt a precedent? And so, I think that even more so now, isn't AI going to help you? Why do you need to charge this? So I think that there's kind of that expectation in terms of clients. And so we also need to find a way to ensure that they see value in what we're bringing. And I think that means that we need to really, we actually need to take a step back. That's why I like the conference. We need to take a step back and think, what does this actually mean for us? It is potentially existential almost, because people believe, they may believe that they don't need sort of legal support in the same way.
Yes.
But there are ways in which they do need legal support. So, and even new types of legal. We need to look at how you deal with apportioning risk. We need to look at how you deal with things like, ownership of data, of output, AI output, things like that. And so we as lawyers need to make sure that when we're drafting documents, we're putting those in there. Otherwise, we really are not kind of anticipating what they need. I also think that there's a lot of the subtle impact that AI and this type of developments that we have is going to have on the way in which certain types of laws are interpreted and applied. And I don't even think that it's something that I think it'll all unfold as time goes by. But there's certain things that, so I think, for example, about the fact that AI has had a huge impact on clients already, or let me say innovation. And so things like even work from home, for example. You have a lot of work from home outsourcing. A lot of people, clients, now have people working from different parts of the world. They outsource parts of their work to, you get people in Nigeria, tech people saying, oh, I work for a company in Hungary,
Right.
and this is what I do, etc. So I think all of that has already changed the way they work. Things like that, you look at the issues that it raises that maybe people haven't been thinking about, clients haven't been thinking about. So for example, from a tax perspective, you can have a permanent establishment if you have somebody that's working full-time for you in a particular jurisdiction. People aren't necessarily thinking about that when they're employing somebody in Nigeria or you're employing somebody in another jurisdiction. So these are problems that are waiting to happen. I think that we may need to tweak the definition of permanent establishment, for example. So I think that there's going to be ways in which the laws are going to also have to develop to take into account all of these issues.
Okay, thank you for that. So to lean into your answer a little bit, right? And one of the things you said earlier was that some people will go to Google and they will believe that they can draft a legal document. And I mean, to be fair, there are some legal documents that I think that some people can draft. And even if they couldn't draft it themselves, we have, I don't know what they are called now, this sort of self-service contract templates that you fill in, right? Which I think would pass muster for most rudimentary transactions, right? So one is that people can get legal service in a way that they weren't able to get it before. So in what way would contracting be fundamentally different in this age? That's one.
Let me answer that one.
Yes, answer.
Let me answer that one. So I think that, of course it is. And like I said, even though I've said, clients would say, can't using precedents, we were using precedents.
Yes.
So it's not something entirely new or strange. But you see, you always knew as a lawyer with experience, you knew when a precedent was appropriate, when a precedent would not be appropriate. You also knew what these various provisions, what the provision means. You know why, looking at a precedent, you know why it may be geared towards one party rather than the other. A person that has none of that experience, just inputting a few words into AI and having a document produced for them will not necessarily get the best out of it. But already I've had a client produce an AI document agreement and then said, oh, can you just review this agreement for me? So that's an easy, you're not drafting, you're just reviewing. But obviously the agreement doesn't serve the purpose, but it's very difficult to tell the client that I actually pretty much have to start from scratch. But there's some advantages also to those types of agreements because sometimes they're simpler. Sometimes we can be overcomplicated. We can overcomplicate things. So I think there's a lot to learn in terms of that. But I also think that we need to kind of guide clients. I believe that there's a lot that we know about the clients that AI prompts won't even know. I believe that actually, even if as lawyers we are using the AI prompts, hopefully we will be using them better because there are other factors, other issues that we think that should be put into consideration that maybe somebody just putting in a few words would not. So, an example I was saying is that if you have maybe a client that wants to expand, and they say, I want to expand into 5 countries in East Africa or West Africa or whatever, and what are the key legal issues I should consider? If they were to ask me that or ask you that, I'm sure we'll probably come up with maybe 5 or 6. Maybe AI will come up with 20. But we will also have the benefit, hopefully, if we know the clients well, of being able to say, look, what last time you did something like this, these were the issues. So let's maybe address it in a different way. AI is just going to go scan through the information that it has. It's going to look at what are the most common trends or what are the most common threads and just give you that. It's not going to have it's not really going to have the benefit of really knowing that particular business.
Right.
And I think really now for us, again, in terms of contracting, but in terms of everything, the differentiation is going to be how well we know the client. Clients have always said that. They've always said, we don't want you to just be our legal advisor. You need to understand our business. I think now that's absolutely essential. And also you can anticipate in a way that perhaps AI can't. So I think that that's going to be the big differentiator.
Okay. I think okay. Let's go with that for now. I have some questions, but maybe I'll ask you at the conference.
Let's see.
Okay, so you said something about AI prompts, right? And that brings me to my next question. We are seeing people use AI software, right, to generate content, to generate videos. The other day I was testing AI. I can't remember which one I used now. And I was like, oh, write me a poem in Igbo. And he actually gave me a proper poem, even though it sounded like a red rose, which an Igbo person would really not write. But it still gave me a poem in my language that made sense, right? And so in legal practice, when we start to employ AI, right, we're most likely going to employ them for what would typically be termed grunt work or, routine work. Sure. And usually this is the area where young lawyers or interns come in and they spend time learning the ropes. Mm-hmm. So if AI is doing that for us in legal practice, how does that affect the discipleship structure that we have for raising young lawyers? And what would the future of raising young lawyers look like now?
So you've touched on my biggest concern.
Okay.
You've touched on what is actually my biggest concern. I think that nobody enjoys grunt work. Let's even be honest. The junior lawyers didn't want to do the grunt work in the first place, but there's a reason why they were doing it. You were learning. I'm just thinking of Karate Kid, where the guy didn't realize he was learning anything when they were telling him to clean the car. But there's still pieces of what you're learning that you need in order to put together to grow as a lawyer. Clients, as we've said, are going to expect you to do things faster, cheaper. Mm-hmm. We already see that a lot where people are saying, well, don't you have due diligence tools that'll help you instead of looking through all these documents? Right. Don't you have discovery tools and all of these different things? But there is some value in young lawyers spending the time reading through the drudgery, even the finance documents, rather than just saying, okay, can you summarize the issues, or, how this works or whatever. So there's a lot of value in that. And that concerns me. Because even now we have clients that say, we don't want to pay for training time. And training, it's one thing speaking to people, it's quite another to do it. So I think that we need to find a way that even whilst AI is being deployed, junior lawyers are still doing some of this work. But I can see, I already know there's going to be pushback because nobody wants to do the drudgery. But I think that in order for you to be able to do the next step, you really need to have gone through that process. So that's something I hope will be discussed at the conference. And I hope brighter people than I will come up with a solution.
Yeah, no, but definitely I think that, as with all things new, as we continue to engage in it, we'll find solutions. Yeah, human beings are quite creative. Like, look at where we are. Okay, so my next question to you would be around ethical concerns with the use of AI, especially in a market like Africa. We keep talking about how the African market is going to keep expanding exponentially in the next 10, 20 years. And one of the things that would inform that growth would be AI and the creative sector. And of course, we need to be abreast of that in terms of our laws and our policies. So what are the ethical dilemmas that you have seen currently within our landscape? And what do you think the possible solutions to those things could be?
So I think that the bias.
Okay.
I think, so let me say that. It's sort of a cliche. Everybody talks about the bias. I think there can be bias in AI. But I think the bigger problem is probably us, because I think as individuals, we either distrust tech or we overtrust tech. That's what I find is the two most common patterns. Those who distrust tech, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I really don't want to work with it. Mm-hmm. And those that overtrust it, well, I've put it in, the computer has said this is it, AI has worked through everything, and if AI has said it, then it means it's objective.
Right.
It isn't. So I think that that's a problem, a potential problem. Um, One of the things I was talking about is, for example, where you look at, you use AI tools for credit scoring, for example. It might make assumptions about people who live in a certain area.
Right.
For example, that okay, these people are more less likely to pay back their debt and things like that. So it may impact your credit score, things like that. Um, there's also there can also be sort of blind spots for AI. So, for example, if you're using an AI tool, compliance tool, and it's checking KYC and it's checking whether they're checking the client and just looking at whether or not they may be involved in something sort of untoward. The AI tools may be set up to just look at English language information online.
Right.
It may not be looking at sort of some of our native language information. It may miss out on things. So there can be blind spots as well around that. I also think that when we start using it for more complex things like AI mediation and things like that, or maybe the judges start using, or maybe judges start using it for deciding on who will be granted bail and things like that. I just think there's huge there's still the bias risk, but also it's people who are maybe more familiar with tech and maybe perhaps are able to challenge
Right.
a decision that's made with AI. Other people may think that, if AI has said it, then it is gospel. So I think there's that aspect of things as well. So I think ethically there's still issues for us to deal with.
Absolutely. I hadn't even thought as far as AI mediation, but I just I just saw that screen in my head sitting between two parties. Wow. But really it's upon us.
It
To be
is
fair.
so many things.
Okay.
And once we've opened that door,
It's open.
people are just looking for different ways in which it can be utilized. Absolutely.
Okay. So clearly, as based on your answer, and thank you very much for that, there are some key considerations that we really need to be mindful of as we incorporate AI into business and in legal practice. Um, I think my final question to you would be, what do you think is a fair balance? What do you think the proper balance between proper partnership between AI and humans in legal practice and business should be? What does that look like? Like a proper, equal handshake.
The funny thing that I said, the thing I said at the beginning was that, different people have been affected in different ways, I think, depending on where you sit, even within legal practice. So, so in-house. So, for example, there's always been I remember seeing quite early on a table that shows, sort of 4-part table that dissects legal work. But essentially, you have work that is that can be commoditized,
Yes.
and is low risk. So that type of work, I think that AI is going to probably be able to be helpful with, because even in-house counsel now, they don't want to give that kind of work out to external lawyers.
Yes.
They want to do it in-house. They save money on that. So using AI tools that are maybe specifically tailored towards their particular needs, I think I can see a lot of that. Where you have something that is of strategic importance, where it's something that perhaps is going up to board level, I suspect that they're not going to use AI.
Right.
I think that a lot of the talk that one has had is about the fact that bits that require personalization, that are very unique, that it require human input, are what's going to be valued and what we're going to probably be paid more for. Of course, those ones might be fewer and far between, but I think what it means is that that's kind of where the that's where the real value is going to come from. And so that means that we have to very quickly, as I've mentioned, know clients better, look at how to better serve them, look at personalization. But in terms of law firms, where we have smaller, I know there's a big push now around KYC.
Yes.
For law firms. And part of the problem has been that, maybe if you're a larger law firm, you can afford the extra people that it's going to require to do all of these things. But if we can use tech
Yeah.
for some of these things, it means that you can be a smaller law firm and you can still operate with all the standards and expectations of a larger firm. I think it also means that from our perspective, the huge London firm models that were able to do some of these things, we're also hopefully going to be able to do them with tech. I think it's something different for everyone. I think where that line is drawn is different for everyone. But I think it's an interesting one. I particularly like AI for checking stuff,
Right.
for checking if anything's been missed. I think it can be a bit dangerous to use for initial to rely on entirely.
Yes.
I think that it can do that, and also it makes you lazy. So I think that one has to really. Personally, I think it shouldn't be your first port of call, but it is something that is definitely a part of the output.
Wow, thank you very much. This has been insightful, and I've learned quite a bit about the future of legal practice. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Ian. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Business Reimagined with NBA Section on Business Law. Let's reimagine legal practice.